And so, Ken, what brings you to Corringham tonight?
Well, I've known Angela for years, and we did a lot of work together on the hunting bill over a decade ago. And I've always thought she's one of the best MPs that we've got in the South East. So I'm delighted to come out here and do some fundraising for her. I'll be delighted to come and work for her at the election as well.
And Angela, you delighted for Ken to be here?
Very much so. Ken's always been very popular in this part of the world because what happens in London impacts on us. And a number of people are affected by, well, going back to the fares policy in London, public transport, the congestion charge, all those things, and increased public transport has an impact on my constituents. So Ken's very well.
Ken, how have things been since May the 1st?
Well, everyone said, think of the good side of it, you'll see more of your kids. But I'm spending a lot of my time abroad. All the cities that wanted me to visit while I was mayor, you just couldn't get the time. So about every other week I'm out. I was in Hong Kong, I'm in Shanghai, Dublin. Next week I'm in Lisbon and then Rotterdam, discussing climate change, congestion charging, planning. I really am keeping quite busy, and I'm writing my autobiography. I got up to being 22. Nothing much has happened yet.
And would you say that what you're doing on a global stage was how you saw your role in London?
Well, I mean, readers of the Evening Standard will be surprised to discover this, but around the world, London is seen as a big success story over the last 8 years, that it was really dysfunctional, it's turned around, crime's coming down, transport's been improved, and we took a lead on tackling climate change. And given that that's I know everyone at the moment's focused on the financial crisis, that's easy to deal with compared with the climate change, which is going to be much worse than people think, much quicker than people think. And so I've been really impressed, while I was in China, at the progress they're making. They're about to leapfrog Germany to be the leading nation in terms of tackling it, and we don't hear any of that over here.
But going back to the economy, are you surprised how quickly the recession came upon us?
Well, no, I've been predicting that there'd be a great economic crash since 1983. Because Reagan and Thatcher started this nonsense of borrowing debt, and each time it looked like there might be a crash, like the big stock market crash in 1987, banks and governments massively pumped more money into the economy. So the world's been, then the Asian crisis, the Russian crisis, the Argentinian crisis, the Mexican crisis, every time there's been an economic crisis, world banks have pumped more money in. So we've been floating on a sea of money. It's been borrow, borrow, borrow. And it was bound to end at some point. I'm just amazed they got away with it for 25 years. Now we're going back to the sort of world my parents remembered when they got their first mortgage in 1957. They just worried about how quickly they could pay it off. For the last 20, someone who started work in the early 80s, some of them have spent their entire lives balancing credit cards, moving money from one to another, store cards, and when they ever sit down, they owe about an entire year's income. We've got to get back a bit more to paying for things as you go.
And how would you assess Boris Johnson's record so far?
Well, you really can't judge an administration until you get into its third year. All the early signs are that he didn't really have a plan about what to do. He's trying to work it out. He's cancelled all the transport projects except the ones already contractually committed. So by the middle of the next decade, there'll be no improvements to public transport coming in London. He's announced his housing policy, which is basically to let developers and Tory councils off the 50% affordable housing rule. And now that we've had leaked the actual figures, he expects all the Labour councils to provide all the affordable housing and the Tory ones to do very, very little. So no change there.
Here we are in Thurrock. I spoke to a couple of Conservative councillors this morning who said that any suggestion of Thurrock ever becoming a London borough is pie in the sky. Did it ever come into debate?
I always, when we were, for the last 3 years, the London Government Act was being amended to give the Mayor more powers. These came in April. And I did raise the issue, did anyone want to join? Because you look at Thurrock, you look at Watford, you look at Dartford, all filled with Londoners, they're all London overspill. Their council tax is as high as London, but they don't get the extensive public transport system. They don't get the very good pensioners free travel that we get in London. They don't get the free travel for under 18s. They don't get the neighbourhood police teams on the scale we do, so they're paying as much, but they're not getting all the benefits. And I always jokingly said, well, if the people of Thurrock voted to join, we would welcome them, you know. But I suppose too many vested interests in Essex.
And will we see you standing again in 4 years?
Oh, I definitely want to stand again. I think by that stage, Boris may not be a disaster, but he's got to go initiating things. In a great world city like London, you need to be running. It's quite like running up the down escalator. The moment you stop, others are overtaking you. And it's not just we're up against Tokyo and New York and Paris. New cities like Shanghai, Hong Kong, Mumbai, they're all coming forward, and you really got to have a new agenda for what London's going to do, because if London doesn't work, Thurrock hasn't got a chance.